a very, interesting city.
It is, yeah.
Really.
I think São Luís is nice too.
São Luís is an island.
Yeah.
It's
an island.
It's an island, and it's a pretty different city from the other ones that you know.
Yeah, and it's near the Lençóis, no?
Have you been there?
No. Yeah, I know, but I never had occasion.
It's a place that I have been there
But
three
it's very,
times.
there's no trees, no? It's just there's dunes and water.
But don't think like this. I really, I promise you.
I love trees.
The moment, but there are lots of mangroves around.
Okay.
Because in fact,
Because when I went to Fortaleza, I'll tell you, when I went to Fortaleza, I was disappointed, and everyone loves Fortaleza.
It's not like that.
Because it's just
No,
dry.
it's not like that.
Very
Because
dry. Okay.
so, and there are lots of hotels now around the park that they are exactly inside the mangrove.
Oh, wow.
So you have contact with lots of trees. Of course, at the moment you enter the park, you're gonna have all the dunes, but the lagoons and the lakes, they are amazing, and the landscape. I can't forget it. I've been there for years.
When is the best time of the year to go? Right now? July, because
Because it's full of insects. But the August is still a good time to go. September, October, November, because of the
July and August is good.
I think you really love it.
I'll have to go next time.
When I took the plane to São Paulo, there were lots of tourists at the airport. So all over the way got São Paulo, say China, Russia, here in São Luís. They didn't stay in the city. They came from Lençóis and the airport. The city is a historical city that was founded by the French. It's the only city in Brazil that was founded by the French. So the style, the houses, it's covered with flowers because of the influence of the Portuguese. So it's a beautiful city too. Not as beautiful as Recife or Salvador, but it's beautiful. Full of good food too, fish, crabs, seafood in general. I love the gastronomy. But you should go to Lençóis, believe me, you're gonna love it.
I would like to.
Sunblock all over the body.
Sunblock every year. Yeah. Really? Very, very hot. Really? Burnt feet. Good, São Luís, São Paulo. They used to do it in Belém, Manaus. It shows they like to do one or the other.
Valeu. Tá bom. Foi de bastão. Vamos entrando? Será?
Muito engraçado.
Haha. Ah.
Vamos voltando na reta final. Olha aqui,
vai pegando.
aumenta pra mim, que eu não tô me escutando. Vai pegando. A última energia. Estamos na reta final. Pode aumentar pra mim o microfone para eu poder me escutar, por favor. Gente, o pessoal do Centro Espírita, ele vem e reencarna e desencarna, é impressionante. Ele tava dificuldade de manter ele entre nós.
Eu lembrei de uma coisa, o Chico Xavier é a primeira impressora wireless do mundo.
Gente, chega uma hora da exaustão e vai vindo isso
gente,
também, né?
Foi só um comentário.
Sensacional. Vamos chegando, vamos para a reta final. Um fundo musical para as pessoas chegarem. Faz uma musiquinha.
Eu sou nuvem passageira.
Não.
Uma música nova, não era essa? Não,
Não, uma música improvisada para as pessoas chegarem.
Ah, entendi.
É isso.
Vamos encerrar.
Vão pegando os lugares.
O pessoal vai chegando. O pessoal tá de pé. O pessoal cochilando. Mas ainda tão botando fé. Vai chegando aqui pra frente.
Olha aí.
O pessoal de trás. O pessoal do centro espírita. Muda de lugar, satisfaz.
O pessoal do fundão tá chegando, pode sentar.
Do busão?
O pessoal do fundão.
Eu entendi o pessoal que veio de busão.
Tá grave aqui.
Lembrei de uma, enquanto eles vão sentando.
Vamos, por favor.
Que é uma versão com tradução simultânea do Elvis Presley, que em português quer dizer Roberto Carlos. Que é assim, ó, vou cantando. Lembra quando tinha tradução simultânea no rádio? Que é assim, ó, para te ajudar com o
Por
inglês.
favor.
Love me tender, me ame comida de Natal. Love me sweet, me ame quarto com banheiro. Never let me go, nunca me deixe no go. You have made my life complete. Você completou minha coleção de revistas Life. And I love you so. E eu te amo, alma. Love me tender, me ame, comida de Natal. Love me true, me ame aquele negócio do McDonald's que a gente para com o carro. All my dreams fulfill, todos os meus sonhos, feel. For my darling, 4, minha querida. I love you, te amo. And I always will. E eu, absorvente, serei.
Uma salva de palmas para Álvaro Lages. Sensacional. Mas, Alvinho, me conta que as pessoas estão te procurando no...
Não, o pessoal, eu saí ali, circulei no coffee break, o pessoal falando, pô, parabéns, gostei. Eu falei, você gostou? Aí falaram, na verdade eu gostei muito do cara da chuva. Achei que era comigo.
Ele já tinha ido embora, daí te ligou e ele vai voltar.
Claro.
Tá? Mas antes disso, continuando a série Celebration Stories, por favor, Leonardo, ela. Quem está com curiosidade de ver esses vídeos, levanta a mão. Ufa, olha, Leonardo, estamos de parabéns, viu? É o seguinte, ela é Marli, ela é professora de inglês do interior do Mato Grosso e tem uma história interessante nesse vídeo, que ela era professora de uma escola, daí a diretora chegou, tem uma reunião com você, pegou não sei quantos livros, deu para ela, falou assim, isso era sexta-feira, segunda-feira você vai ser a nossa professora de inglês. Então ela fala como isso? Daí ela falou assim, não, leia e você é professora. Eu falei, mas como você é professora de inglês de 2 dias e você vai deixar a sua comunidade sem professora de inglês? E aí ela que se tornou professora de inglês, já está há 30 anos sendo professora de inglês e com certeza ela não ficou nesses 2 dias, né, como aprendizado, e ela foi se aperfeiçoando. E ela falou também, a Samantha, sobre pensamento crítico, né? E é com essa palavra que a gente vai chamar, porque tem a ver, porque eu achei que ele foi muito legal na chuva, eu quero ver se ele transforma isso em música.
Eu fiquei com a vontade de chamar para receber ele, todo mundo fazer barulho da chuva.
Ai, vamos lá, vai. Com ele! Por favor, pode barulho da chuva, barulho da chuva. Isso. Vem forte. Entra aí, Giba do Barbatuque! Sensacional, pode vir aqui, pode... Gente...
Não, essa daí foi...
Não é.
Ele está deitado ali atrás, ó.
Sabe o que é isso? Convivência com palhaço. Aí ele vai pegando. Giba, foi maravilhoso que eles fizeram chuva. Agora eu quero saber, é possível fazer música?
Claro que é possível. Inclusive, pega o seu bastão. No bom sentido, é claro. É claro que é possível, inclusive, sempre bom ressaltar. Inclusive, a gente tem, como eu disse, todo mundo aqui trouxe instrumento, e o grande lance, a gente viu algumas pessoas aqui que trabalham com educação, como, apesar de algumas adversidades em termos de recursos, essas pessoas conseguiram se tornar educadoras e passar informação de qualidade para muitas pessoas. Muita gente, nesses 20 anos do Barbatux, a gente desenvolveu esse método de percussão corporal, que, além da parte de entretenimento, que são nossos discos, espetáculos e tal, a gente tem uma parte forte, uma ligação forte com essa parte pedagógica. Muitos professores procuram a gente de música, não só de música, arte educadores em geral, para solucionar um pouco desse problema de estrutura dos cantos do país. E quando eu falo dos cantos do país, eu estou falando tanto da periferia de São Paulo, quanto de lugares mais longínquos. A gente teve um belíssimo exemplo aqui da nossa professora do Pará, e quanto a gente tem de cultura, né, para absorver, e o quanto a profissão, na minha visão, mais importante nos tempos que a gente vive da sociedade, que é a de professor, flerta com o que a gente faz, que é a arte, né? Então, obrigado.
Muito obrigado. Foi muito
então, em
gentil
cima
da sua
disso,
parte.
a gente,
Maravilha.
eu queria fazer uma brincadeirinha com vocês, para a
Vamos
gente
lá.
começar a fazer um pouco de música. Pode
Fechou.
ser?
Pode ser.
Então, assim, tem várias linguagens no mundo que usam o corpo como instrumento. Você tem desde a catira, que é uma tradução aqui do Sudeste, você tem o flamenco na Espanha, você tem o sapateado dos Estados Unidos, você tem o beatbox, por exemplo,
Beatbox.
beatbox. Vamos fazer um pouquinho de beatbox. Então, o beatbox surgiu nos Estados Unidos, cultura do hip hop. Você tem aquela, né, imagem icônica do cara com rádio, assim. Só que o que acontecia? Uma hora a pilha do rádio acabava.
Me irrita um pouco a sua facilidade.
Tá bom. Não cai, não precisa
Não,
cair.
não, vai lá, por favor.
Só que essa, né, a pilha do rádio acabava. E o cara começava a tentar reproduzir essas batidas mecânicas com os sons da voz. Então, uma brincadeira para a gente descobrir um pouquinho aqui do som de beatbox. Então, andando pelo Brasil, por exemplo, aqui em São Paulo, a gente fala muito pô.
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 Né? Pô. Então, se a gente fizer esse pô bem forte, curto, mas suprime um pouco o fica no P, o P mudo. Tenta aí.
É natural que a pessoa sinta um molhadinho aqui na nuca? Porque eu sinto, o pessoal que estava... Cara,
É natural. É natural. Pode acontecer.
Não, gente, passamos o dia junto. O que é uma cuspidinha na nuca, gente? Pelo amor de Deus.
Gente,
vamos lá.
E hoje em
A gente
dia...
já passa por mais dificuldades, né, gente? Vamos lá.
E hoje em dia, passar um dia junto já configura a união estável.
Vamos,
Já.
vamos lá.
Então, o primeiro som, que, relacionando com a bateria, seria o nosso bumbo. Pô. Só o P mudo, bem forte. Claro que o beatbox conta com um pouco desse efeito do microfone, né? Que se eu fechar ele um pouco aqui, olha como fica o pô. Fica bem mais forte. Mas é exatamente isso que eu estou fazendo. Então, pegue esse bumbo e reserve.
Perfeito.
Rita Lobo.
Outro.
Então, por exemplo, Rio Grande do Sul, a gente pega o tchê. Tchê. Se a gente fizer o mesmo processo, tira a vogal, só o TH, a gente pode até pensar em TS ou TX. Faz um pouquinho para mim. Boa. E aí, a gente tem assim, mais para o nordeste do país, quando a gente esquece alguma coisa, a gente faz... Se a gente fizer o ish, bem curto e bem rápido, golpe de diafragma. Então, combinando esses três sons. Primeiro, o P. Se a gente fizer um pouquinho mais rápido, fica... o Alvinho, como todo bom mineiro, vai fazer os scratches, que em Minas...
Uai, 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 uai.
É isso. Então, juntando todos os sons de cada estado, vai dar...
Uai, uai, uai. Uai, 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 trem.
Sensacional.
Então, continuando. Um som que todo mundo sabe fazer. Som da mão no peito. Você pode?
Pode, estou à disposição.
Obrigado. Não, é mais para falar. To talk. Okay. Então, todo mundo primeiro. Boa. Outro som bem conhecido, som do estalo. Todo mundo estala com as duas? Então, ó, tem uma manhãzinha que é o seguinte, às vezes a gente acha que o som do estalo é o som da fricção aqui do dedo médio com o polegar, certo? Errado. Pelo seguinte, assim como uma corda de violão, se você pegar só a corda e puxar ela, a vibração dela não vai emitir nenhum som. O violão depende da caixa acústica da madeira, que tem atrás da corda. Com o estalinho, tem uma coisa bem parecida, que são esses dois dedos aqui, que dá o som de estalo. Se você, na mão que você já estala, se você tirar esses dois dedos, ó, não tem som quase nenhum. Então, às vezes, a gente tende com a mão esquerda, ou com a mais fraca, a direita para quem é canhoto, tende a ter esses dois últimos dedos levantados, e aí não tem som. O som do estalo é dessa caixinha acústica aqui, ó. Tá rolando? Então, ó, se a gente organizar esses dois sons dessa maneira, peito, estalo com a outra, sempre alterna as mãos, estalo, peito. Só a organização desses dois sons, nessa sequência, a gente já consegue fazer um sambinha. Então, por exemplo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Não posso ficar
Com você. Sinto muito amor, mas não pode ser. Moro em Jaçanã. Se eu perder esse trem que sai agora às 11.
Dá vontade até o fim nessa, né? Muito bom.
Maravilha. Vamos fazendo. Antes de chamar a próxima pessoa, o pessoal aí fazer essa do.
Sim.
Vamos lá.
Sim.
Vamos lá.
Então, para terminar, quase terminar, eu queria pedir o seguinte, para vocês levantarem, pode ser? It's a little bit about healthcare because the varices, you know? Então, ó, como no primeiro jogo, o que eu fiz? Eu estava fazendo uma sequência de sons com a voz, tum-pá, tum-tum-pá, e vocês estavam repetindo. Agora o processo é parecido, mas o que a gente vai fazer? Tum é o som do pé no chão. Então vamos testar todo mundo junto. Massa. O pá é a palma. Então, se eu fizer tum, pá, vocês. Tum, pá, tum, tum, pá. Muito bom. Estamos chegando. Exatamente. Quase isso. Então, ó, a gente vai fazer essa frase duas vezes. Vou fazer uma vez, a gente repete. Tum, pá, tum, tum, pá. Tum, pá, tum, tum, pá. Vamos. Legal. Do mesmo tempo que dura essas duas frases, a gente vai fazer os estalinhos, tá? Então, o estalinho, na nossa onomatopeia sonora aqui, seria o tch. Então, a nossa frase vai ser o seguinte: tum, pá, tum, tum, pá, tum, pá, tum, tum, pá. E volta, tum, pá, tá bom? Então vamos lá. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, voltou. De novo. 3, 4, 1 e 2 e 3. A última. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 e 2 e 3.
Sensacional! Olha, a gente vai passar a bola agora para o próximo. Para você? Qual é o seu nome? Benjamin. Vou passar a bola para o Benjamin e depois, senhor Álvaro Laje, eu acho que você está muito na maciota. Eu tenho um desafio para você no final, tá bom? Uma salva de palmas para Benjamin.
Mr. Kiss Myself. Thank you very much. How do I follow that? No, but that's very impressive, isn't it? How they can teach you to do that. I mean, I'm wearing a purple suit as well. I think I might change my clothes for the next time I speak here. Anyway, I say Benjamin because if I say Ben, people get a bit confused in Brazil. Because to do Ben. So I say Benjamin, and somehow it's easier. Thank you very much for being here. There's a lot of you. I think this is my third Cambridge Day here in Sao Paulo, but I don't think I've ever seen quite so many people as this afternoon, well, as today. So thank you very much for being here. Some people have come from very far. I was just speaking to a lady who's come from São Luís de Maranhão, especially to be here. So we've been, some of us, at the back I can see my fellow colleagues have been traveling around Brazil doing these Cambridge Days, and this is the culmination in Sao Paulo, but we've been to some wonderful places. And I love the way that today's event in Sao Paulo is celebrating the diversity of the diversity of Brazil, yeah? So the north, the northeast, the south, etc., the center of Brazil. I think that's great. It's such a wonderful country, like a continent in itself, isn't it? So I think we should give a round of applause to the organizers of the conference who are celebrating this wonderful diversity of Brazil. I'm going to be talking today about something you don't know much about, and you have no idea because you don't know what they are. But do you know anything about these things? Do you have one near you, maybe? Is it kind of, are you clutching it at this moment? Is it kind of burning a hole in your pocket? Have you used it 27 times already during this Cambridge Day? Yeah. I'm going to put mine away, okay, because I don't think I need it right now. But we are obviously obsessed with these devices, yeah? They form an incredibly important part of our lives, and this seems to have happened very, very quickly, yeah, to all of us, to us as teachers and also to our students. And this talk is all about trying to take a positive attitude, yeah? Try to take a positive slant on the use of mobile phones because many people look at them in a rather negative way. For example, this image is not very positive take on mobile phones, is it? But what's interesting about this image is that in a way, there is a kind of dual or multiple reality that we live through, right? So we walk down the street, walk down Paulista or whatever, but at the same time, we're experiencing that face to face, but at the same time, we are conscious constantly of what's going on our device. So we're kind of living
the 2 or 3 different lives at the same time, the real face-to-face life, the virtual lives, and you're constantly thinking about if someone has actually seen my latest update, if they've commented on it, if they've, that email, have they replied, etc. This kind of anxiety is not a good thing, I don't think. But our dependence on them and the way that we invest emotionally in them is something that we can exploit positively. So I think that's what I'd like us to think about in the next 50 minutes, this idea of taking full advantage of these devices and thinking of them in a positive way, not in a negative way, as this image does. This is the overview of what we're going to look at in the next 50 minutes. We're going to look at EdTech very quickly. This is a big topic, right? So we're going to look at EdTech quickly and how EdTech, education technology, its role in ELT, how it has been presented to us as well by certain organizations. And I think that's important, how we relate to education technology, the new hardware that's coming out or the new apps that are coming out, what role do they have in teaching and learning. Then we're going to look at a framework for mobile teaching and learning, and then we're going to look at your role in making the most of this. So what can we do to make the most of mobiles? And finally, what does it all mean for you? I'm going to finish with a positive example, I think, of the positive impact of education technology. I'd like us to think that education technology, that digital devices like mobiles, can enhance what we do. I don't believe that they should transform what we do. I don't believe that they disrupt. You heard this word disruptive? Yeah, that this word disruptive has a very negative meaning, but it has been, let's say, repurposed in a positive way, that technology disrupts everything that we do. I don't buy that. I don't want technology to disrupt, because if it disrupts, it changes things unnecessarily in my mind, changes things too radically. We can live with education technology and with all the things it can do for us, but at the same time, we can carry on doing the stuff that we've always done. And so I'd like to think of education technology as complementing what we do, not replacing, not disrupting, not transforming, but enhancing, yeah? So keep that in your mind, because at the end of this talk, I'm going to show you a very positive example of how education technology has enhanced one teacher's life. Okay, let's look at EdTech and ELT in general then. So how do we talk about EdTech? Have you been to many EdTech talks? I guess you have, right? If you go to Bras-TESOL or BRELT or any of these conferences, if some of you have been lucky enough to travel to international conferences, you've probably seen lots of talks about education technology, and they tend to focus, I don't know if you agree with me, they tend to focus on, 500 things you can do with this app, yeah? Or 200 things that you can do with the mobile phone, right? Are these talks helpful? Do you download that app and then you look at it again and again and you try it out? Or do you download it and then forget about it? I think we sometimes we do exploit an app or two. But actually, if you talk to teachers around the world, which I'm lucky enough to do, in actual fact, they use just certain ones again and again. They haven't got the time. We don't have the time to exploit all of these apps, all of these things that our devices can do. And yet talks in ELT conferences often focus just on these artifacts, these devices, and they focus on activities that you can do with these apps. Now that's good, and I will also be talking today a little bit about the devices themselves, in this case the mobile phone, and the activities you can do with mobile phones, sure. But we're forgetting an important aspect, and that is the context in which this technology is used. And that's what we forget about when we talk about education technology. And why don't we talk about context and use? I think it's because it's more difficult to talk about. Yeah? If you want to give a talk about education technology, the easiest thing to do is say, I found this app, I'm going to tell you 500 things you can do with it. But it's more difficult. You need a kind of you need to take a kind of bigger picture approach to think about how mobile technology is used, education technology is used, in what context. And that's what we're going to be looking at primarily in this talk. We will be focusing on the other two, but our main focus will be context and use. And I think My belief is that we don't exploit education technology enough or in the right way because precisely we don't focus enough on context and conditions of use. Now, let's have a look at an example of the way education technology is, one famous way of understanding the role of education technology in our profession. Have any of you seen this before? It's called Amara's hype cycle. In other words, something happens, yeah? You have a technology trigger. That means something like the interactive whiteboard appears, right? Do you remember when that happened? I was here in Brazil in 2007. I remember going to the Cultura Inglesa symposium, or I think it was on, what would it have been called? The seminar that they have once every couple of years. ABSI, I think it is, yeah. And I remember that when interactive whiteboards arrived, 25% of the talks in that conference were on the use of interactive whiteboards. Because the technology was new, yeah? Everybody wanted to talk about it. So what tends to happen when a new technology arrives, whether it's software or hardware, is that we have very inflated expectations of this technology. We think it's going to be fantastic and it's going to transform our lives, yeah? And then what tends to happen is that we have what's called this disillusionment. So suddenly people get a kind of bit bored with interactive whiteboards, that they realize that interactive whiteboards actually aren't that interactive, that in actual fact, if interactive whiteboards are used badly, they can actually make classes worse because they tend to become presentation classes and not interactive at all. You know what I mean? Some of you are nodding. And then what happens is that we get over that disillusionment and we end up with a kind of middle position, which is what we call the plateau of productivity. When interactive whiteboards, let's say, I'm using this as one example, becomes a kind of fact of life, and we use it in a kind of regular way. Now, a friend of mine in Barcelona, I live in Barcelona, he was actually the director of International House in Barcelona. On his blog, he wrote down the different kinds of elements of education technology. So virtual reality, he wrote there, VR, he wrote tablets, interactive whiteboard, and online. By online, he just means online learning, I think. And he tried to put onto this hype cycle these different elements of education technology. So here he's got virtual reality that he's put right down here, right? So it hasn't even reached an inflated expectations. It's something that people are starting to talk about. It's not having impact in our classrooms. And yet people are talking about it and making you feel if you don't use virtual reality, then you're not going to be a good English teacher, right? This is the problem with the propaganda that surrounds all of this, that they're trying to tell you that it's going to transform the way you teach. Tablets, the same, yeah? So there's this kind of, he feels it's right down here. This is his impression. I'm not saying this is what I believe, but this is his interpretation. And interactive whiteboards, he places it lower. So he says, yeah, at the moment, he would reckon it's somewhere around here. And online learning, considerably higher. So it depends on what element of education technology you're talking about. Where would you position it in the hype cycle? But the interesting thing about mobile phones is that somehow they're different, aren't they? I was thinking about where would I put mobile phones on this hype cycle? And it doesn't fit. And the reason it doesn't fit is because they are just ubiquitous. Yeah, they are everywhere. And somehow their ubiquitousness, let's say, makes it kind of go off the graph. The use of mobiles somehow doesn't fit into the hype cycle. And I think that's one reason why we should be using mobile devices, precisely because it's different from the other elements of education technology here. So where are they? Why are they different? Well, I think they're different because, of course, we carry them around with us. We do carry around tablets as well, but it's what I can see right now are these mobile devices, and people taking pictures with them right as I'm speaking now. So what are the advantages? Let's think positively of using mobiles. In a moment, I'll talk about whether your students can use them or not. I know some students can't use them because your institution doesn't allow them to be used. We'll move on to that because that is the context and use side, right? That's the important thing about mobiles, is that we need to bear in mind the contextual aspect. But just thinking generally, why are they so good? Why are they so good compared to other elements of education technology? And here's my my take. Well, I'm not talking about smartphones. Can you still buy a cheap mobile phone without a smart? Is that still possible to buy? When I'm talking about mobile technology, I'm not necessarily talking about smartphones. I'm not talking about iPhones or the latest Galaxy or whatever. A simple mobile phone can do much more than you think. We don't need sort of super expensive smartphones. So most students own them anyway, right? Is that true in your context? Not in everybody's context, but in most people's context here, your students have one, right? Everyone has one. Yeah. Or two. Yes, exactly. Sometimes there are more mobile phones in the classroom than people, right? In fact, I'm sure there's more mobile phones in this room than there are people. That's what makes them different. So, most students own them, no cost to institution. Controllable. They are actually controllable because they're small. You can put them in flight mode, yeah? You can turn them on and off. You can get your students to place them face down on the desk so that you can see that they're not using them. You can, with a bit of classroom management and a bit of discipline, you can control their use of mobile phones more than other elements, more than other bigger devices. And of course, they're motivating, aren't they? We invest so much in them that if we're going to use them, then they become powerful learning tools precisely because we invest in them, that we use them so much for other aspects of our life, that students are going to think, great, my teacher's getting me to use my mobile phone. That has to be a positive thing because I love my mobile phone. I can't live without my mobile phone. So great. It's motivating. And of course, it's portable. So your mobile phone, it's always with you. Yeah, very close to you. You're always constantly checking that you have it. So the learning is always with the learner. So it's that, again, inherently portable. And of course, they're smart. They do a lot of different things. But as I said, a lot can be done with unsmart models as well. And they are challenging, yeah? So again, getting students to, I'm sure you've done this or thought about doing this, getting students just to get their mobile phones out and, as a warmer, compare the photos of their weekend with their partner is just a no-brainer. That kind of warmer, if it's controlled properly, show a photo of your weekend that was meaningful for you. What's the most meaningful photo from your weekend? Have you done something like that? Yeah. Suddenly, you change the whole dynamic of the class. You're not the center, the student's at the center of the class. So again, that's challenging. Students provide the input, and that challenges the traditional standard teacher roles. So all these things, I think, are positive are inherently positive about using mobile phones. There's one going off now. But not everybody agrees. Okay, and in fact, my colleague Mark might know much more about this, but in France, they're banned, right, in secondary. Well, they have been banned in secondary education for years, but recently Macron introduced, this is from September 2018, a new law aimed at detoxing teenagers from their screens. The policy is to actually ban them from use in the playground, not just in the classroom, but in the playground, which is quite heavy, right? In Paris, have a read of that. One of the teachers is giving it a positive spin. She hadn't noticed pupils complaining. This could bring a focus on new activities and interaction. Thinking, yeah, the phone is constantly distracting the students. This is what they can't focus anymore. Their attention span is like this big. And so now we'll be able to bring a new focus. Take away the mobile phone, and suddenly our students are going to be focused. But this is a nice quotation. One of the teenagers, however, felt differently about this, and I think this is very interesting what she says. There is this idea that our generation can't concentrate or has lost the ability to socialize. It's a 14-year-old being quoted here in The Guardian. That's not true. When I'm with friends, showing them a picture on my phone or looking something up just adds to our conversation. It's a shame that I can't do that inside school anymore. Interesting, no? And I would agree with that, I think. So you can go too far in the banning of mobile phones. By doing that, I think it's actually a very aggressive thing to do to this kind of generation. Maybe in the class there's a point, perhaps, but outside the class I don't get it. And this is James Paul G talking about technologies in general, these kinds of mobile technologies, and I think this is, you can read that, I won't read it out for you, but I think this is very, very interesting, that what he's talking about here is incidental learning, yeah? That we learn on the go. We're learning when we don't even realize that we're learning. We've got so much exposure to texts and images and whatever through our mobile phones that this allows us to be learning all the time, yeah? And I think that's a very powerful idea. Okay, so that's the introduction to the positive qualities of mobile phones, yeah, and how we can think of them in a positive light. But how do we embrace this, what James Paul G calls here, you know, these new experts, this stuff that kids can do now at a level that they couldn't do before? How do we as teachers embrace that exciting fact? So that's what we're going to talk about now. And if you're interested in this, this is a framework for mobile teaching and learning. It's been adapted from a British Council white paper that I'm going to quote now to you. And this is also quoted in this Cambridge white paper, which you can download from the internet. Okay, so this is some of the things I'm going to be talking now. This is the academic framework. You can download yourself. I'm going to give you the link in a second. This is the link. Sorry. It's a little bit sensitive because I don't understand technology. These things are always, they help us so much, but when you get a bit nervous, they kind of go crazy. So that's the CUP link for downloading the paper. And then this is where we got the framework from. Mobile Pedagogy for English Language Teaching, a guide for teachers, and the link is, wait a moment, I should be going over there. There, okay? So you see a short link. You can see a bit.ly link there. So this is a framework for, in terms of activities, in terms of thinking about activities for language learning and language teaching. How can this framework, how can activity exploit these different aspects? This is a framework based around mobile learning. And I really like the fact that it focuses here on teacher wisdom. Because one of the things that you hear about education technology often, and there's been all kinds of talks about this, famously Sugata Mitra in IATEFL many years ago said, technology can do it all, the teacher is not necessary anymore because learners can learn themselves. What I like about this framework, in this mobile pedagogy framework, is that it includes teacher wisdom. It's saying, no, don't just get your students to use their mobile phones. You know how best to get your learners using their mobile phones productively. So you're crucial in this. And this is a very powerful idea because they want us to believe, some organizations want us to believe that this technology is replacing us, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. So you need to guide them in their use of mobile technology, right? And in a moment, I'll show you a little activity, a very simple activity, which I think focuses on these four different elements. Then we have device features. So we are focusing on the device. What can a mobile phone do? How can it enhance activities? What can it do productively? So, very basic things, yeah? So you can take a photo very easily, you can make a video you can edit a video, you can modify an image, all these kinds of things that couldn't have been done before, yeah? What can we do now? The activities that we used to do before, what can we do now that we couldn't do before because of the device's features, yeah? Then we've got the idea of learner mobilities, so the idea that people are on the move the whole time, learners are on the move the whole time, and therefore, at any moment, there could be the chance for a learning experience. You're walking down Paulista and you see something, you could take a picture of it. That could provide the focus, trigger for an activity. Yeah, this is the exciting part. Learners are mobile. Learners can learn on the bus, walking down the street, listening to a podcast. Yeah, and later I'll show you with Evolve how we've embraced some of those ideas in the Practice Extra that's available for smartphones for this particular course. And finally, language itself, with a language agenda. So language is dynamic, language is changing. Just look at YouTube, look at social media, look at the ways that language has changed with the digital age. Language is evolving, people are using emojis and, different kinds of ways, different codes to communicate with each other. So, bearing in mind these four features these four elements which form the center of this framework for mobile pedagogy, what's the benefit when all these elements are harnessed? That's a posh word. When we embrace all of these elements, what's the benefit for you as a teacher? Okay, so this is a little activity, just a very simple activity that I created, but basically I created it because I live in Barcelona, and Barcelona is, have you been to Barcelona? Anyone? Put your hand up if you've been to, lucky people. But when you go to Barcelona, what language do you speak? Yeah. Give it a try with Spanish. You wouldn't get very far in Portuguese, but the language that I hear on the streets of Barcelona, and I live in the center of Barcelona, is English. So Barcelona is a city a bit like Amsterdam or Berlin. It's one of these cities where it's become a kind of Euro center, and English is the lingua franca. You hear English everywhere in the city. You hear it everywhere, and you see it everywhere. So I did a little experiment. I got my mobile phone, out of this one that you can see here, and I thought, as every day I walk around and I see all these English words. Some people call this the linguistic landscape, yeah? And you can do the same thing in Sao Paulo. Look at the Sao Paulo's linguistic landscape, okay? And you can go around taking pictures of English. You see English here? Yeah, more and more, right? Yeah. And English is used for marketing, it's used to sell, it's used to put something modern or whatever. So get the students to take images of English. So this is what I did. The photos I'm going to show you now, I'm not joking, were taken within about a 10-minute radius from where I live. Okay? All of this English. Handsome love. There's a love store. Can you believe it? Have you seen Pepe? Yeah. Different menus, signs. There's some more here. Even serviettes. Just everywhere you go, there's English. So you can say to your students, okay, go around Sao Paulo or wherever you live and go around taking images of English words. Now these English words could appear in adverts, they could appear in menus, they could appear anywhere. And then ask the students to say, so why is English being used? This would be for adults, yeah, probably. Why is English is it being used correctly? Yeah? What's the effect of so much English in our landscape? What's the effect? Is that, it's a kind of ethnographical kind of activity to get the students thinking of the role of English in their particular society. Now, if we think about that task, that task, I think, embraces a lot of the things that we saw in that framework, yeah? The idea of language dynamics, the idea that language is constantly changing, that there's suddenly more English in the world today. It focuses on the idea of learner mobility. You walk around doing a project based around English, yeah? It focuses on the features of the device as well, because it's very easy to take these pictures, and then you can download them, or you can send them. You can make a mosaic of them using a digital tool, if you like. But the teacher wisdom is important. You have to set that activity up. You can't just say to your students, go around and take pictures of English. There needs to be a reason to do that. It has to be a project or something like that they can create, that there's some conclusion that they come to about the use of English in their particular town or city. You know what I mean? That's where your guidance comes in. So can you see how the four elements of the framework come together? One more activity, and I chose Sao Paulo for this, is to create a mosaic of your city. Now, again, the important thing about this is that this is inside the class and outside the class. So if you can't, for whatever reason, you can't use mobile phones inside the class, I guess that's true for a lot of you, right? Doesn't matter. The students take the photos outside the class, and they create the mosaic, they send them to you, and you project them in class. That's the important thing about mobile pedagogy. If we understand the context and use, don't feel that you feel, okay, I can't use mobile phones in class, so I'm just simply not going to do anything. Students use them outside the class to enhance the in-class activities, right? So, my city is simply, okay, think of an image of Sao Paulo. I'm going to get you to do this because I need to drink some water urgently. Think about Sao Paulo. What's Sao Paulo for you? If you were going to create a postcard of Sao Paulo, what would be in your postcard? And think of the good things and the bad things about Sao Paulo. I love Sao Paulo, but the traffic is terrible. So I think I would include, a traffic jam somewhere in the Marginal. So, just for the person next to you, if you were creating a postcard of Sao Paulo, what would you include? And how would that be different to the typical postcards of Sao Paulo? So if you put Sao Paulo into Google Images, what images do you get? Just a couple of minutes. Yeah. What images would you include? And then I'm going to show you what a student of mine did. What would you include? What would you include in your postcard? Bars? Bars and nightlife. Yeah. Yeah. Bars. Sao Paulo nights are fantastic, aren't they? Yeah, yeah. Better by night than by day, almost Sao Paulo, right? What do you think? It's almost
Yeah, but I'm a more a day person.
You're a day person. What images of Sao Paulo would you include?
Here, Ibirapuera Park.
Okay.
It's nice. But we are chatting that we must explain to our students what is a postcard.
Yeah, they don't know what's a postcard.
Okay, they don't know what a digital postcard. Somebody just said, I'll just stop you there. Somebody just said to me, my students know what a postcard is. That's a good point. I guess there are no postcards anymore, but you can walk down Paulista and you find any postcards? No. People don't send them anymore. A digital postcard, I mean. A mosaic of your city. So what would you include? Somebody said to me, bars and cafes, Ibirapuera Park. Yeah. Anything else? The Maspe building. Mortadella sandwiches. Pastel de bacalhau, no? I remember the first Paulo, I queued for about an hour in the mercado to have one of those pastéis. Do people still queue for those pastéis? Yeah, pastel. My pronunciation's a bit funny. Anyway, I'm going to show you listen, I know in Sao Paulo you're very interested in football, so I know some of you are not going to like what this student of mine created because of the football team they chose, but each person to their own. But obviously football is a very important element of a city. So I'm just going to show you what this student created, her mosaic. Let's not say postcard, let's say digital mosaic of Sao Paulo. Here it is. Is this good? So we have got some Corinthians fans. Minha vida. I'm not sure about that. But look at these images. They're quite interesting, aren't they? You've got the pastel there, the cod pastry. I asked, this is a student who created this a long time ago, and I can't remember now everything she said about it. But she said, what's interesting is that it's like a mixture of like stereotypical images. So if you think about the traditional postcard, it's usually, monuments and things like that symbolize the city. And so she has included one, the Estação da Luz, no? But she's also included other things like nature, so the beautiful jacaranda tree in Ibirapuera, where you can see some of those beautiful trees. The architecture, modern architecture, Nehemiah, the Havaianas shop, that big one, is that still there in Jardins? It's like a huge Havaianas empire. And then I said, that graffiti is not very nice. And she said, yes, I remember what she said. She said, a postcard doesn't have to include just positive things. It can include negative things as well. Like I said about the traffic jam, she said graffiti is everywhere in Sao Paulo. Some of it is nice, some of it's horrible, but it's part of Sao Paulo for her. This was her personal, obrigado. This was her personal vision of Sao Paulo. And the last one that I like is this one at the top. And I totally identify with her. I said, why did you choose that photograph of that aeroplane sort of engine there? And she said, because flying into Congonhas is one of the most terrifying experiences anyone has to do. And it's so much part of Sao Paulo as well. And we landed last night, and you really feel like you're touching the buildings, don't you? So it's a personal vision, yeah? That's just one example. But again, remember, it's a very simple activity, very, very simple. But look how much language can be generated by this activity. So much language can be generated because the student has created it. It's their image of the city, right? So they're invested in it. They want to talk about it. So then, as a teacher, your teacher wisdom, you have to say, okay, why did you present it in class? Don't have to use the mobile in class. No, mobile is outside the class. And the teachers talk about it. Students present it, ask questions about it, and then maybe you could do a whole class postcard or a whole class. Which images, that's a nice idea, which images recurred? Which were the images that most recurred? You could create a whole class postcard of Sao Paulo, yeah? One that challenges the stereotypes and one that's personal to your particular class. So, the importance of the framework, that's just one activity that I hope embraces the idea of the framework. But let's look at that importance of the framework. I think that it's very clear that the teacher wisdom is up there. So teachers' expertise and knowledge are prioritized. This is so important in the digital age when we're being told that we are not needed. We are needed, very much so. We can't just leave it up to our learners to do it. We need to guide them. The second point is it shows how mobile technology can sit side by side with pen and paper. So it's not just a case of one or the other, like in France. I don't think we can say no mobile phones. No, mobile phones can work together with the traditional pen and paper. You don't need to throw the pen and paper out the window. Both can work together, symbiotically, as they say. Mobile pedagogy does not just refer to mobile devices. We think of mobile pedagogy as just focusing on mobile phones, but we are mobile, yeah? Remember what I said? Learner mobilities, the fact that we move around, that you're here now, today, in the Cambridge Day. You've probably sent lots of updates to people. Hey, taken photos, telling people where you are, because that's what's important in today's world, to tell people where you are and what you're doing. We are mobile, but also materials are mobile. Remember Post-it stickers? That also gets people moving around the classroom. The interesting thing is learner mobility, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. How learners interact is also mobility. See what I mean? Don't just think of mobility as referring to mobile phones. So that just said, student interaction is important both with each other and with their devices. We want to get away from the idea of students just looking at their devices individually. We don't want that. We want learners interacting, being mobile with each other and with their devices. The context is important in that case. And as I said, this is very, very important. We know that depending on the context that you're in, you may not be able to use mobiles in class, so we need to embrace these two concepts, the synergy between inside classroom use and outside classroom use. And finally, we need to, obviously, the fact it considers authentic, up-to-date language use. That framework I showed you is very much focusing on how language is changing in this digital world and we live in. So, I don't know where to look. I'll look at you. Yes, it's better. Now, in Evolve, what we have created for you, this is the new adult course book. I'm sure Mark referred to some aspects of Evolve this morning. Just going to give you a couple of ideas. We've created some activities for you to do in the classroom. And as I said, these are optional. You don't need to be on flight mode necessarily. You can have them if your students can use. It all depends on your context. If they can use the phones in class, all the better. In this particular case, they do need to go online to check some information. But these mobile activities are very varied. Some of them rely on connectivity. Some of them just rely on what you have inside your mobile phone, your images or whatever. So again, bear in mind your context. Remember, always referring to context. Some of these you could do outside class if you're not allowed to use the mobile phone in class. So here's an example. Make a list of 5 things you have with you and guess what country they come from. And then you can go online to check. Another activity, and this is called what we call Find It. So that's the logo to let you know when you can use the mobile phone. Another activity, this is one where you don't need to, oops. Oh dear. Yeah, this is one where you don't need to use, you don't need to have internet connection. So here it's simply find a photo on your phone or another device that you could post to an online forum and describe the story behind it. That's a nice idea. Not just describing the photo, but telling the story behind the photo. It's a nice and much more, again, generates much more language than just talking about describing the photo. And then you share that with the rest of your class. Have you ever done anything like this in class? I'm sure some of you have already. But what's nice about Evolve is it gives you, this is a moment where you can do an activity like this. It's I think it's one of the first courses that includes this use of mobile technology. So I actually have this Find It logo here, where we say it's okay to use mobile phones now, okay? Sometimes you need connectivity, sometimes you don't. Okay. And then I think Mark referred to this, I'm sure he referred to this in his talk, which is the peer model. So again, you're just taking your smartphone device and just floating it over the barcode, you can access these videos, these peer models that I'm sure Mark referred to you. So there are quite a lot of mobile activities integrated into the course, integrated into the materials in the print book, which is, I think, a first for adult course books. Okay, that's now the third teacher's role in making the most of mobiles. And here are a couple of quotations talking about the fact that students we need to focus on what goes on in the lessons, but we also need to focus on what goes on between the lessons. This is from the British Council source that I shared with you. Do you remember the British Council paper? If you took a photograph of that, you'll have the link there. And this is Van Leer talking about students' minds must occupy themselves with the language between lessons as well as in lessons if improvements are to happen. Mobile technology can allow us to do that, right? Because the learning can take place anywhere. Another quotation, this time from a student, and he's saying, before this practice with apps, I never used my phone to study, and now no one is using the phone in the class, and now we are free to do what we like, to use the phone to study. It's a new thing, it's a new concept, he's saying. So again, he's excited that the mobile phone is being used for pedagogical purposes. And this is what we have in Evolve to enable you to do that. So we have these practice extra homework activities for each lesson and skill. And this includes speaking and writing, which previously had not been embraced in mobile phone activities. And notice the size, yeah, very, very easy to that. You can easily do that on the metro. Well, depends on rush hour in the metro. It might be a bit difficult in Sao Paulo, but you can do it. The idea is you can do it anywhere that you want, anywhere you like. And they're very kind of mobile-friendly, bite-sized activities. And this is what I was saying about speaking and writing. So again, students can actually record themselves doing an activity. They can actually bring that to class as well. You can listen to them doing it. Then you can ask them to do it again in class, and you can compare what they did at home with what they did in class. See what I mean? It's about making that connection between outside class learning and inside class learning. Yeah. So it enables a lot of speaking and writing practice as well. And here's one of a teacher, again, talking about the writing element there. Students have realized you can actually write half of it when it's still fresh in your mind. So give you a project to do, a writing project, they can do it on the bus or at home using while it's still in their mind. And then they can add to that later. Okay, so looking at those 4 elements again, yeah? Those 4 elements of the framework for mobile pedagogy that we've established. What's the benefit when all these elements are harnessed? And this is where I'm going to finish talking about a story, a case study of a conference. In fact, it's a case study of this particular conference. And what I like about this story is exactly the role of education technology. I'm going to move away. For this conclusion, I'm going to move away from mobile phones for a moment, just to talk about education technology in general, which is how I started the talk. And what this story does is I think it tells us how, as I said, education technology can enhance a teacher's her teacher's activity. It's all about a teacher who I met here at this very conference a few years ago. And I asked her, because of her professional trajectory, I asked her to send me an email talking about how education technology had helped her in her career. And it's very interesting how this has been a very step-by-step approach. Technology has not overnight transformed what she has done. No, little by little, attending conferences like this, being able to go to the UK, a different context in which she has worked, she has made enormous changes in her professional life. And this is the story I want to finish with. And I'm going to read the story, if you don't mind, because she's actually here in the room somewhere. We'll maybe point her out a little bit later, but it's a teacher from Sao Paulo State, and I'm going to tell her story, if you don't mind, wherever you are. So this is the story, okay? In 2015, so that's 4 years ago, I went to Cambridge Day in Sao Paulo for the first time. That's where I saw a lecture on using real content from YouTube with learners. I thought the idea was amazing and could really see students liking the activity. I knew I had to use that somehow. I found some great channels and started incorporating them into my lessons. Okay, so that's the first step. A year later, 2016, again, Cambridge Day, Sao Paulo, I saw another talk about students producing videos as a way to practice speaking and to be the protagonists of their learning. Right there, I knew I would do something related to that. I just couldn't figure out what. You see how it's step, paso, you say paso, yeah? Step by step. And I think the important things there is that is the idea. First of all is the lecture on using YouTube with learners. That's the first thing. And she says, I knew I had to do something to because YouTube is so important. And the next one, I knew somehow the students then could make their own videos, but I just didn't know quite how to do it. So what was the next one? Did she come to Cambridge Day in 2017? No. In 2017, I didn't go to Cambridge Day because I was accompanying an exchange group in the UK for a summer school. One day, there was an activity in which students needed to produce a short film. And a few days later, there was an award ceremony in like an Oscar style. So this is the context. Notice it's always context here. Particular context she found herself gave her another idea for another task to do in her context. When I came back to Brazil, I started planning the school's first film festival. It's a nice idea. I was so surprised by the outcome. Wonderful videos, some of which I couldn't even imagine how they were made. That's interesting. Students who had never spoken in the class participated, and it was amazing to see their fluency. And again, I think that's again a key point of education technology, that sometimes the technology or the activity in this particular case brings out students who previously didn't participate in class. Somehow they're in a role, and have you ever found that suddenly a student who never spoke before suddenly becomes very active in class? Okay, and I like this as well. Wonderful videos, some of which I couldn't even imagine how they were made. So in other words, the students are kind of teaching the teacher how to use. We know they know a lot about it, right? And here in her story, it clearly comes out that she is very sensitive to the idea that the students are able to do this. They have the knowledge already. And finally, in 2018, so that's, with 3 years have gone by, Cambridge opened up a contest. Cambridge University Press opened up a contest to choose English teachers as presenters for the new YouTube channel they were developing. I really wanted to participate, but had never made a video myself. That's kind of interesting. So the students make the videos, but she herself had never made a video. The learning process is very interesting. I took on the challenge and chose a topic that I thought was interesting, made my video, and submitted it. To my surprise, my video was chosen as one of the top 10 from over 700 videos sent. The videos went to a public vote, and I was one of the 5 most voted presenters. And now, being an official YouTube presenter, I've learned so much on presenting, especially speaking in front of the camera. I now have much more technical knowledge to help students at the festival, the film festival, as well as my peers on new projects. Now, what I love about this story is precisely, remember what I said at the beginning, the focus on context and use. Notice that all of this process of learning, she talks about the context in which she's in. In the Cambridge Day, in the UK, the film festival, helping students, helping her peers, and then creating a new activity for herself. It's an inherently positive story, and I feel very proud of this teacher, and there's a couple of points there I think that are very important, yeah? About how you learn step by step, yeah? Step-by-step progression. And I don't know if some of you may know her, but this is the YouTube channel that she's talking about. She is one of 5 international presenters, so she teaches now online for the Learn English with Cambridge channel, and her name is Rebecca Rios. I don't know, she is from, now am I going to get this right? São João de something. What was it again? Boa Vista, São João de Boa Vista in Sao Paulo State, and I think she's here today, so I feel very proud that we have helped her in her career. I'd like to give her a clap if she's here somewhere. Would you like to stand up? There she is. Would you like to give Rebecca a clap? It's a very, very wonderful story. That we can make a difference like that, I think, is fabulous. And if you want, you can learn English with Rebecca. No, of course, her videos are for students. But interestingly, teachers also look at this channel. And that's the other thing about education technology. Once it's up online, you don't know necessarily what happens to it. And although this was intended for teachers, some teachers are actually accessing it and using it to help their classes. And just you can see some of the comments here are very nice. I feel so good because I understood everything you said. Yeah? Lovely that these comments from the students there reinforcing how positive this channel is. Hi, Rebecca, great video. Wow, you're totally right. As a learner, I really did the same mistakes, and I noticed my students did when they were learning. This video has been really useful. So useful, you see? This is fabulous stuff. That people are learning this way, on the move, let's say, using YouTube as a channel. I'd like to know about love and friendship phrases. Thank you. I'll give you an idea for your next video. And my favorite one is this. Gente, que a Globo está perdendo com essa teacher maravilhosa. E também é atriz, gente chocada. Anyway, I wanted to finish with that story. I'm not sure that's very good pronunciation, but anyway. Because as I said, I think it shows the potential of education technology. It shows how education technology can enhance, in this particular case, Rebecca's career. Obviously, that's just one case study, but it has the potential to do that. And I love the way the learning is, as I said, step by step, not overnight. It took 4 or 5 years to get to that stage. And I think we can do that with education technology. So, referring back to what I said at the beginning, how do we talk about EdTech? I think, yes, we should talk about the devices. We should talk about these phones. We should talk about the activities. But we need to focus on the context and the use of mobile technology. Very, very important. And just as some closing thoughts, just to finish with, I think it's not disruptive in either sense of the word, okay? Doesn't have to be transformative. You can carry on doing what you do and what you do very well without technology. All it can do is enhance if you use it well. Mobile phones, education technology in general, can enhance what you do. It's not going to transform what you do overnight. It's not disruptive. It's not like a tsunami that's going to take you over. This is a very negative idea. It is something that we need to focus on because it's all around us. It's ubiquitous. We need to embrace it. Not let it embrace us and take us over. See what I mean? For successful use of mobile technology, context and conditions of use are all important. Inside class, outside class. You decide. And finally, it's about making connections. Fundamentally, it's about making connections. Mobile pedagogy is about that. Between virtual world and face-to-face world, between the classroom world and the outside world, between you, the teachers, and your students. Thank you very much. And that's me and my dog, okay? So if you want to write...
Olha.
So please write to me. É o meu cachorrinho. Same dog is still around, yeah, thankfully. Thank you very much, everybody. And now I take...
Alô, alô, uma salva de palmas para Benjamin. Congratulations.
Then,
Vamos para o grande final agora, hein? Vamos para o grande final, vai ser loucura. Antes disso, Leonardo, vamos falar sobre o último vídeo Celebration Stories, que é da Lucimara, de São Paulo, que trabalhava em uma empresa de tecnologia e abandonou após ter experiência como professora. Vejam esses vídeos, é muito legal. E depois desse grande final, a gente vai mostrar em primeira mão os novos vídeos que vão estar lá no YouTube. Perfeito? E falando de comunicação, como bem falou, e como a Lucimara também, a gente vai agora comunicar para o mundo o que a gente falou, algumas palavras-chave. E eu tenho um desafio para você, Álvaro Lages.
ei, eu já estava feliz aqui.
Não, não.
Doido
É o
pra ver os
seguinte.
vídeos. Vamos ver vídeos, César.
Não, depois. Preste atenção, vão pensando em palavras-chave, que eu vou até aí. Eu quero que você faça uma música, você no beatbox.
Fechado.
Tá? E aí, qualquer palavra, você vai improvisar. Começamos assim o dia e terminaremos dando um upgrade no desafio.
Ai,
Tá certo?
aprendi inglês.
É o seguinte, e também, Giba, explica para quando terminar essa música, vai continuar a música no 1, 2, 3, 4, todo mundo levanta, explica como vai ser.
a gente vai fazer o desafio com o Alvinho. Eu vou segurar um beatbox para ele fazer a improvisação com as palavras que você vai pegar. E o desafio para a plateia é, a hora que eu contar 1, 2, 3, 4, a gente levanta e sai tocando o nosso refrão que a gente acabou de aprender.
Perfeito?
Tumpá, tum, tumpá, tumpá, tum, tumpá.
E você de casa,
Falei,
Beleza?
vamos ver
que
vídeo.
tem vizinho embaixo, coloca um salto alto, paf! Para que a gente acorde esse mundo. Ó, boa sorte, pessoal de casa, é só acompanhar. Vamos lá? Vou pensando em palavras. Boa sorte, Álvaro Lages. Vamos lá. Eu vou dar a primeira palavra. Boa sorte, vai precisar. Desde as 8 da manhã já está com um fuzil a menos. Começamos com celebração de histórias. Foi!
Celebração de histórias. É Celebration Stories. Nós vamos cantando agora, ficando mais forte que o Chuck Norris.
Olha lá, outra palavra. Peraí.
Mais palavra pra mim.
Olha, são palavras que vocês escutaram hoje. E ela falou Power Rangers. Mete bronca, palavras de hoje.
Eu vou aqui rimando em verso. Eu não vou rimar em prosa. Do Power Rangers eu gostava muito mais do cor-de-rosa.
Transformação.
Power Ranger cor-de-rosa.
Transformação e educação. Mais voz ao ouvinho.
Eu vou falar pra vocês, eu falo de coração, que a grande transformação só existe via educação.
A palavra é em inglês.
Critical thinking.
Critical.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking. Critical thinking. Vamos lá. Palavras em português, galera.
Critical thinking é pra quem tá ligado. O pensamento crítico tá aqui também do outro lado.
Palavras que ele escutou hoje. Ele fala, pode ser pamonha. Vamos lá, pamonha.
Vamos falar de pamonha. Antes que isso acaba, a melhor pamonha que eu conheço é de Piracicaba. Mentira, é de Goiânia, que eu tô ligado.
Construindo futuros brilhantes. Aí é difícil.
Isso é bom pra terminar, porque você não falou isso antes. Nós estamos aqui together, construindo futuros brilhantes.
A última, para começar o desafio com o público. Última. Peraí, a última. Peraí, a última. Peraí, não toca aqui não, centro espírita. A última palavra pro desafio do público, vamos lá.
Suco de manga.
Como? O pessoal, acho que não escutou muito as palestras. Suco de manga. E ó, suco de manga. E a palavra também, sonhos.
Eu vou na padaria, junto com o meu amor. Vou tomar um suco de manga, porque o sonho não acabou.
Vamos lá, Gibá. Agora todo mundo, hein, agora.
1, 2, 3, 4. Continua, Alvinho, eu vou dizer. Agora é com você. Em cima dessa base eu quero ver a música que você vai fazer.
Eu vou falando aqui, você não me leve a mal. Antes de sair eu deixo um beijo fantasia do quintal.
E música sem refrão não é música. Vamos lá agora.
Tô aqui desde as 8 da manhã pra terminar essa canção. Eu vou ensinar pra vocês pra poder cantar um refrão. Nosso futuro together, tamo junto, together.
Todo mundo.
Tamo junto, together. Tamo junto. Nós tamo junto.
Rege essa galera aí, Chibé. Grande final.
Tamo junto,
Together.
nosso futuro,
Together. Pra acabar.
nosso futuro.
Mais uma. Pra acabar. Valeu! Uma salva de palmas para Álvaro Lages!
Nossa,
Giba!
e comandando esta bagaça, César Gouveia!
Valeu! E por todos os lados, você!
Vamos tirar uma selfie?
Vou tirar uma selfie. Gente, o mundo é uma mentira, né, gente? Olha, antes de passar, pode sentar rapidinho que o João Madureira vai falar as últimas palavras. E antes disso, gostaria de agradecer. Vamos passar um promo dos novos vídeos, mas gostaria de agradecer muito a confiança. Há 6 anos atrás, foi um presente ser convidado há 2 anos. E muito obrigado pela confiança e dizer sim para a Companhia do Quintal, de a gente poder compartilhar o que a gente mais ama fazer e encontrar cúmplices nessa trajetória. Muito obrigado pela permissividade, a generosidade de a gente poder brincar juntos. É muito mais legal aprender brincando ou brincar de aprender. É muito mais legal. Para que a gente ter esse paradigma, né? Trabalho é lugar de coisa séria. Se a gente passa a vida mais trabalhando do que em casa. Então, resumindo a sua felicidade para 2 dias da semana, eu não recomendo isso a ninguém. Então, e quando a gente vai trabalhar, a gente não se deixa em casa, a gente vai, né? A gente vai ao trabalho. Então, faça dos seus dias, das suas trajetórias, da maneira mais celebrativa possível. Obrigado. Valeu, gente! Vamos pro promo!
Quando eu tive contato pela primeira vez com a educação, quando eu estive na sala de aula, eu senti uma emoção que eu jamais havia tido na minha vida.
Depois que eu comecei a ser professora, que eu comecei a dar aula, que eu falei, não, eu quero algo maior, eu quero algo melhor, eu quero estudar.
Eu caí de paraquedas na educação, como muitas pessoas caem, mas eu caí de paraquedas naquilo que eu amo fazer.
Eu me senti como se a minha vida tivesse um propósito.
educação, ela liberta, ela transforma, ela modifica a realidade das pessoas.
Porque quando você aprende, você entende melhor o outro.
Você está dentro do Brasil, não é? E assim é essa troca de experiência. E cada canto tem uma coisa diferente.
Eu acredito que o coletivo, ele desperta o meu melhor.
Meu sonho sempre foi transformar a minha cidade, o que não é difícil. Quando várias pessoas se juntam, as ideias se somam e você consegue mudar alguma coisa.
Acho que fazer parte da história de alguém é uma das melhores coisas.
Vamos sonhar juntos. Esse não é um sonho meu, esse também é um sonho de vocês.
Nenhum ser humano conseguirá ser livre se ele não tiver acesso à educação.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you for this wonderful closing. I hope you enjoy the videos. Season 2 coming very soon. So keep following us on the social media. Before we cut off the live streaming, which we have to do in a few seconds, I would like to call Ben Goldstein, Mark Evertson, Michael Thompson, Ben Knight, Samantha Hughes, our guest speakers up to stage again here. If you could just come up and receive another round of applause for the wonderful contribution to this full day. We really appreciated the time and effort that was put in this trip. São Paulo, of course, is the ending of it, but these guys have been through hell to be here, basically, because they've been to different airports, different hotels, some nice meals, most of them not so nice meals. But thank you very much for giving your energy, your time, and your kindness to be here, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. Really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. The Cambridge team in Brazil is really grateful for your time and effort to be here. Thank you. We will end the live streaming, so let's wave back to people that been watching with live streaming. We have had over 200 people, probably more, because in some cases we had the classroom full of teachers watching one particular live. So thank you for those of you who have followed our day through live streaming, and perhaps we hope to see you here next year. So we're cutting off the live stream.